Well, comes the weekend, actually the 4th of July weekend, and you would think there'd be a ton of great movies coming out, so I can hardly wait to hear about the ton of great movies that are coming out this weekend from Michael Snyder. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and oh boy, I wish I could satisfy your craving for great movies. Actually, you know what? I have good movies, but the so-called big releases this week are not, movies I can review. There was no screening that was offered or available to many critics in the Los Angeles area of Sicario, the Day of the Soldado, which is the sequel to a drug war thriller that was fantastic by Denis Villeneuve. And it also, features the return of Josh Brolin and I guess war on the Mexican-American border, which is something familiar to people these days, but we're talking about the drug war here. But they didn't make it available to everyone, so no review of Sicario. And also, I called an audible here. No review of Uncle Drew, a comedy of sorts based on a cola commercial with NBA All-Star Kyrie Irving in old age makeup, but shooting hoops like an NBA All-Star. It's a movie that apparently features turns by Tiffany Haddish and J.B. Smoove, who I really like, and a bunch of other pro basketballers in old age makeup. That was a hard pass for me. But instead, we have three powerful dramas and a comedy all about painful, difficult, or problematic family relations, and all with merit. Let's start with Leave No Trace. This is a smart, moving, tense, and provocative film, an unconventional family drama about an unconventional family, a single dad and his pubescent daughter on an odyssey of survival in the unforgiving wilds, the backwoods and urban wilds of contemporary America. A troubled but loving and resourceful veteran of the Middle East conflict, Will, who was brilliantly and poignantly played by Ben Foster, he has no job and no home per se, but he and his daughter, Tom, have been living on their own and off the land and surviving quite well in the national forests outside Portland, Oregon. But they're discovered by the authorities, brought to town, and put into the social services system. So then the question becomes, will the intervention help or hinder the twosome? And the results are heartbreaking in a movie that's very subtle, yet shattering, as a father tries to do what's best for his daughter, even as his demons and the system threaten him. Are they better off in what passes for civilization or back to the land? The film is directed by Deborah Granick from a script by Granick and Ann Rossellini, and it is a beauty that will linger and disturb you long after watching it. It's one of those films that'll work well at home, on home video, and a special shout out to the young actress Thomasin McKenzie, who plays Tom, the daughter. She's right up there with Ben Foster in this. And if you know who Ben Foster is, he's done a lot of supporting roles, and he was in 6 Feet Under. He's a terrific actor, and he does really, really well here. Leave No Trace stuck with me, oddly enough. Okay, Dark River is a deep and bleak drama, as befits a movie about an estranged sister and brother, Alice and Joe, battling over the ownership of their late father's rundown sheep farm. She's been away for 15 years due to a desire to escape family strife. And now that she's returned in the wake of her father's funeral, the struggle is on, and it's compounded by land managers who want to buy out the lease, even as the siblings vie for control of the tenancy. It's a Yorkshire setting with some of the thickest accents in England, and I cleverly watched it with subtitles. So again, this may be one you want to wait for on video so you can get the subs. But Yorkshire has a stark, rugged beauty in this film, as does the film, and the actors, specifically Ruth Wilson of The Affair as the determined but haunted Alice, and Mark Stanley of Game of Thrones as the careless and downtrodden Joe, are absolutely on point. They're great. Dark River is a downer, but extremely well wrought. And the filmmaker, Cleo Bernard, another woman, like I guess the same situation as in Leave No Trace, she wrote and directed this thing. Definite kudos to Cleo Bernard for Dark River. Okay, staying in the bummer world, we have custody. Oh, I mean, we've seen movies about battles between warring parents over the custody of a child before. Kramer versus Kramer comes to mind, and they're usually wrenching, emotional fare. Now, throw in the quiet menace of a spurned husband and father with a hair trigger temper, and you get the devastating custody. It's a mix of drama and psychological thriller from French writer-director Xavier Legrand. In France, there are adjudicators who come in and discuss these family matters and hear both sides of the story and then decide on the custody. And if you have a good enough attorney, you can get your share of, I guess, the time with the kids and your backstory and what might actually be going on between husband and wife. Those things don't become an issue, or they're not as ever present unless you have a lot of things on the record. So in custody, we have an unsentimental look at a broken marriage and this war over the two kids, a teenage girl about to turn 18 and a younger boy who becomes a pawn in this ugly game between the parents. And as the story unfolds, we begin to see who or what is pushing the conflict, and we start getting a sense of dread and terror creep in. I mean, this is excellent filmmaking in the realm of social realism, and it'll leave you drained, but it's worth the pain of the experience. Written and directed by Xavier Legrand, I really recommend Custody. And on a lighter note, we'll wrap up with Ideal Home. I had high hopes for this unconventional family comedy, which is actually a rather conventional comedy about an unconventional family situation. In short, Steve Coogan and Paul Rudd are a well-to-do gay couple living the good life in scenic Santa Fe, New Mexico. Coogan is Erasmus, a celebrity chef with the TV series and the best-selling books and the fancy tastes. And Rudd is Paul, his partner and producer. All is hunky-dory except for the constant bickering between the two companions until Erasmus's grandson shows up at the house with a note from his own ne'er-do-well father, who's been hauled off to jail. Apparently, Erasmus had a brief dalliance, experimenting with heterosexuality in his younger days, had a son, ducked out, and that son grew up and had a son of his own who was a tough but damaged kid who falls into the settled and Tony upscale lives of Erasmus and Paul. And you can kind of see where this is going. It's written and directed by Andrew Fleming, who has done some fine work on the big screen. I really loved his movie Dick, about two teenagers who break into the White House and meet Richard Nixon. I liked The In-Laws. I liked Hamlet, too. He's done some good stuff. And he's also written and directed TV shows like Lady Dynamite. But this is a little broad and predictable. Generally, though, pleasant and positive, especially after all the angst and the other three movies I had to sit through this week. And the cast is talented. I love Coogan. I bought him and Rudd as a fussy longtime couple, and there are solid emotional beats and some laughs. But this seldom goes beyond charming and does get a little predictable. Nice home viewing, especially if you're a fan of Coogan and or Rudd. What are you up to, buddy?
Just binge watched Luke Cage.
What do you think?
It's very good, but I don't like the ending. It's unsatisfactory so far as I'm concerned. But I do think that compared to something like Black Panther, when it came to being in the media, he was the original superhero, black superhero, and a far better what could I call it, role model, because he's dealing with Harlem and he's dealing with racism today, and there's a lot of messaging in there. Whereas with Black Panther, what bothered me, it was the notion that the only way that a black society can be worth it if they're technologically proficient. When, to me, the height of any civilization is their culture, and certainly even in deepest, darkest Africa, there was a great amount of culture. And so I think that there's a thing that black people should watch to feel great about a superhero. Would be Luke Cage.
Mike Colton, big surprise. I wasn't familiar with him. And the first series, I liked the first half. I thought it was one of the best things that Marvel had produced. And the second half of series one, I wasn't crazy about. But I agree with you about this one. And you know, it's still worth the trip, even though the ending may not be up to standards.
Well, they take him in a direction that I don't think the character should go, but people should watch it. I don't want to spoil it for them. And my wife is watching Deep State, which is on, well, I can't even remember the name of the channel now. It's one of those.
Is it on Epix? I watched it as well. It's the Mark Strong espionage show.
Yeah, yeah. And she likes it. I couldn't get into the second episode, so I'm going to go back and watch it. But those are the things that we're currently pursuing in watching. So.
Both good, man. Meanwhile, if people want to catch up to me on Twitter, at Culture Blaster, and also you can check in with our little discussions and such on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page. We'll be back with more exciting movies next week.
Yes, I hope they're more exciting than this week. Thank you, Michael.
Wait, Ant-Man and the Wasp is coming. It's going to be great.
Oh, Ant and the Wasp. I can hardly wait. Thanks, Michael. And there's more GABNet coming right up. Stay where you are, all right?